Well, welcome, Ian Morrison, and this guy is probably responsible for more blockbuster games on the 8-bit machines, especially. So we're talking about games like LoadRunner, Beachhead 1 and 2, Raid over Moscow, Zaxxon, Nightmare Rally, Enduro Racer. The list goes on and on and on. So how did you get into programming, Ian, and how did you eventually get to own a Spectrum?
It would have been my father was recognized that I was a bit geeky, what have you, and he was a high school physics teacher, so he was, he bought some of the early computers for us, and I remember he bought me a Commodore PET, then the ZX80, the ZX81, and then the Spectrum. But over the course of owning and playing with those computers, I started, writing the odd game here and there, and
Hmm.
that just from that moment, my early career was formed.
So you must have started on like basic, I guess, yeah. So how did that progress into machine code?
Um, in order to get more performance from the computers, you really have to move to machine code. And I remember I had a book on it. I remember I don't remember the transition from basic to assembly language. I would have written basic on the Commodore PET. But
Hmm.
I guess writing basic on the ZX80, ZX81 Spectrum, you really couldn't get enough from the system. And in particular, the screen refresh on the ZX80 meant that you really couldn't write any games in basic.
Yeah.
So I guess that's what prompted the move into assembly language. But at Z80, it was fairly simple. It's the first and only thing I had to learn about computers to get things going. So I can't remember. I said I can't remember the exact transition, but I've always been an assembly language video game programmer since the very beginning.
Right. Okay. Well, you did some games for Romik Software, didn't you? So Shark Attack. Let's have a talk about that first of all. How did that come about?
Um, we'd played around. Me and a couple of mates had played around, promoting our little ZX81 games and what have you through the local newspapers.
Hmm.
And even I think we did a collection of games on the ZX81 that Romik picked up.
Hmm.
And then so they asked for some more. And there's a collection of little games on the Spectrum that they put on cassette tape and sold out of their facility in is it Romford or maybe
It was
not
Romford.
Romford? Yeah. I, I guess that's the most creative I've been in video game design and development for a long time. And as much as, very quickly we moved into arcade conversions, but I love just the randomness of figuring out a game concept,
Hmm.
a game platform, and th that was my interpretation of it.
So you guys were based in Glasgow, weren't you?
Um, South of Glasgow, Ayrshire, but yes, Glasgow is the big main town.
Yeah. So how did you get in touch with Romik Software, and what were they like to work with?
Um, I cannot remember how we got in touch with Romik. I reckon we'd gone down to some of the very early game conventions.
Yeah.
Um, I'm remembering Earl's Court. So that
Hmm.
there would
Yeah.
have been something going on there, and bumping into different publishers. So over the course of a couple of years, every summer would have gone down, met a few new people, and slowly we got a reputation for these weird guys up in Glasgow doing game stuff. But yeah, Romik was a very fun introduction to games, and I think we ended up staying at the house of the publisher for a night or two, helping him to package the cassette tapes as well. And then slowly we started to meet more professional people, and
Hmm.
from Romik to Silversoft to Ocean to US Gold. Just from driving down or taking the overnight train to London and see what would
Hmm.
happen.
Sorry to stay with Romik for a little while. So their setup was quite basic, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was the early days, so everyone's setup was really basic. Remember,
Yeah.
helping them to assemble the cassette tapes. But I guess that introduced us to the idea that there's publishers as well, not just the game development front of things.
Yeah. So what about Silversoft? Was it the same sort of deal? Did you just get to meet them at a trade show?
I remember the specific meeting, and one of the guys from Silversoft, if I'm not wrong, was from Glasgow. So that helped, common
Mm.
accents and stuff. He'd made good down in London. Um, and we did, 3 or 4 games for those guys. You'd probably be able to tell me the names better than myself. But that was very much, as you said, a transition from
Mm.
the X81 into Spectrum and the beginning of professional publishing and stuff.
So yeah, I can tell you I've got a list. So the games are Exterminator and Brain Damage. Does that ring a bell?
Oh yes, I love those. There's another one that I was quite fond of called Never Turn Your Back on a Monster. I'm not sure if that disappeared completely. Hold on, my daughter wants extra time on her iPad. There we go. The thing, the things we do for a quiet time, the digital nanny.
Well, your first classic game was LoadRunner. That's a fantastic game, and that was done for Software Projects, wasn't it? So, how did all that come about?
Um, I'm glad you told me it was software projects, but yeah, it makes sense. I really enjoyed doing that one. But I can only assume it was just the trade shows and walking
Mm.
around and talking to people, and they took a punt on us, and I'm particularly proud of that one, in as much as I was 100% responsible for the graphics, for the programming on that. With their own little assembly of um high school kids, myself, Alan Laird, David Anderson, and at one point in time, a couple of others were hangers on and helping us out here and there. But that was one that I really took responsibility for myself, and I
Mm.
remember quite intimately some of the programming challenges and successes there. In particular, the AI algorithms to um, navigate the bad guys around the maze to make sure that they always caught you. Um, I'm very proud of that. I enjoyed that one, and to this day, I whip it out. I've got the emulator on the internet and check it out again. And I love to be reminded of the menu system that we did, the loading thing that we did, the algorithms that I mentioned earlier. And it's a bloody hard game to play, but I, I enjoyed it, and I find to this day, many people still remember it, and it's a great talking point as I meet the parents at the at my kids' schools even.
It's one of those games as well, which keeps getting cited for the AI that we were talking about. How did you get the enemies to be so intelligent, or at least seem to be so intelligent?
Random numbers.
Yeah.
You can put all the complex algorithms that you want to put at these things, but the character will inevitably get stuck or get lost or what have you. So I throw in a few random numbers as well, and they will always come and get you. It's not that many lines of code, but you do your best with the algorithm, and then you throw in some random numbers to make sure that they never get stuck. So inevitably, they always will get you. They always kill me when I play the game these days.
What was your programming setup at this time?
Um, I went from, the single computer to multiple computers,
Yeah.
and I'm assuming it was, one for graphics, one for testing, one for programming type stuff. And I remember at one point in time when there was one or two of us working with me, at a grid of 3 by 3 monitors and
Right.
old-fashioned black and white cathode ray TV sets, and the computer keyboards down below. So quite a few devices. And you couldn't connect them up with anything, so you had to use tape to transfer the program from one device to the other, I guess. But that was to allow you to be programming in one while you're testing on the other.
Right, I see. Okay. Well, your next batch of games, and this carried on for the rest of your career, all these massive hit games. US Gold, wasn't it? So how did they get in touch? It must have been through Ocean, I guess, because they distributed their games, didn't they?
Yes. Jeff Brown was CEO of US Gold, so they distributed Ocean stuff, and I don't know if we were poached by US Gold or they just had more money or more interest, but they had they had the titles. So with acquiescence from Ocean, we started talking to and working with those guys, and I guess that's where outrunning stuff came in.
Right. So how did that work with when you were working for US Gold? Did you actually work in the offices or did you just work remotely?
Oh no, but the good thing is that being in Birmingham, if I'm not wrong, it's
Yeah.
closer than Glasgow. So we had a relatively good relationship there. They're a lot harder on us in terms of schedules and all that stuff. They're
Yeah.
much more business like. Obviously, they had quite big ambitions at that time, but nevertheless, we did have fun, and I think there's one summer when we were doing, I'll not tell you if it was Outrun or maybe even Turbo Outrun. We did an arcade game in the garage. Rather, we rented a house in Romford, and the three of us just had our computers um, and just lost a summer to programming the games. And we would go out to the garage on occasion, check out the logic, check out the graphics, make sure we were heading in the right direction. And I tell you, I mean, a fun little story from teenage years. We actually lost a day in as much as you know, maybe we're working and programming 25 hours every day, just
Hmm.
following a natural sync. And so we ended up looping around, as it were. We thought that was terribly funny.
Well, can you tell us anything about the development of, let's say, Beachhead?
Oh, Beachhead was the first.
Hmm.
um, serious project that we got paid money for. Before that, we'd just been, selling through newspaper ads and,
Yeah.
hacking away in the business, working with guys like Romik. But Beachhead was serious, and it was given to us almost like a test project.
Hmm.
Let's see what these guys could do. And I do recall that 6 weeks later, we turned it around, and they went, "Wow." Um, and I'm speculating here, but obviously with no internet, with no other ways of getting them the game, but maybe taking it down on the train, putting it on a tape and taking it down on a train to London, what have you. But I do recall that we really put a lot of effort into it, splitting up the different mini games,
Hmm.
collaborating and taking different responsibilities on those, doing the graphics ourselves, for God's sake,
Hmm.
and being received with a very positive acclaim after we finished it pretty quick.
If you don't mind me asking, how much did you get paid for doing that?
It was more than hundreds, less than tens of thousands. I mean, it was an amazing amount of money for people still at high school.
Hmm.
Uh, nothing these days, but it certainly changed the outlook on life, and it gave me the confidence to take a year out of university, before attending uni rather. My colleagues had a more traditional route, so I guess, was I left on my own, but I took it seriously for another year before going to university, which was important for my parents, etc., that I end up there.
Yeah. Speaking of which, were they quite supportive about your career in games?
Um, did they have any other option? Yes, generally supportive, and my father just created the framework, created the environment, and let me get on with it. I recall telling them all my achievements, and sharing some stories here and there, but they just left me to my own devices. And as long as I wasn't getting into trouble, I guess, and generally supportive to that extent. Just the pressure to, yes, you need to go to university one of these days. Let me take a year out was a big thing for them.
Right. Okay. Well, you stayed with Ocean and US Gold for a while, didn't you? So you kept churning out the hits. So what sort of deal did you have? Was it just on a title by title sort of
There
deal?
was all it was title by title with a little bit of royalties.
Hmm.
I'm not going to talk out of turn, but those royalties are promised and never received. And you can imagine these business people were a lot better at business than I was at that time. So they were very happy to um I'll use language like exploit, take advantage, but that would be impolite. We did what we were doing for the fun as much as anything. Yes, we um, I think at one point in time, um, I actually managed to start my own little games company, and I bought my first flat and a motorcycle and a
Hmm.
second-hand car and stuff. But that's, as we get into the Amiga and Atari days.
Right. Excuse me. Zaxxon, that was an arcade conversion. Did you get any help at all with that from the arcade manufacturer, or how did that work?
No, we've had no association with arcade manufacturers, or even when we were doing Commodore 64. Translations with no help or assistance beyond here. Look at the original source game, not even the source code or graphics, what have you. Zaxxon was one that David Anderson took the lead on. So I'm not going to talk, certainly not going to take credit for that one. But no, that was just look at the arcade, figure out some of the algorithms. The isometric rendering of the game board was a technique that we learned
Yeah.
from the arcade and brought that over, what have you.
Hmm.
I think the only again, this is near the end of my career when I moved out to Los Angeles and before I took life really seriously, before I took life properly seriously, we met Williams Midway, and I was at a conference and I met Eugene Jarvis that had done the original Robotron. So it was great to work on. It was great to have a few conversations with him about the arcade game Robotron that I then took to Nintendo, what have you. But certainly throughout my time in the UK and the Spectrum, no support or relationship to the original source at all.
Right.
Just the arcade game in your garage. That's fun.
Right. So, Nightmare Rally, because you got a bit of a reputation, didn't you, for writing racing car games, basically. So, you first came Nightmare Rally. It must have been really daunting to go from what you were doing before to doing, like a 3D game, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Well, this is Alan Laird and I were working on that one, and the car was modelled on a Ford XR3i that he bought, so we must have
Yeah.
made some money by this time. But yes, what I was particularly proud of, I think my contribution to the racing games in particular was algorithms to render the roads and the hills, the curves, what have you. Again, the KPI or the USP or what made us special, not special, but what gave us a little bit of edge in the early days was just to maximize CPU. And
Mm.
so drawing the screen or rendering the screen line at a time, raster by raster, and having the mathematics to know on this raster when the start of the road should be, then you change the color, you have the end of the road, what have you. You just drawing those rasters based on the curvature of the road, based on the hills, and using mathematics to figure out where it should be. That was something that we started out on Nightmare Rally and Enduro Racer and obviously Outrun and all those games. We uh, just optimized it a little bit more, made it a little bit more capable, adding object to the side of the road. So yeah, rendering the screen was the particular talent we had or the algorithms behind that were a little bit special and gave us the edge. And I was always looking at the arcade games to try and figure out from the artifacts that you saw in those screens, what the
Hmm.
algorithms might be. And I said that was a fun bit. Geeking out a little bit right now. Sorry, but we had fun. That was our little area of speciality, trying to figure out from the maths to the algorithms to the opcodes of the spectrum and stuff.
Yeah, it was one of the first games to have ills and things like that, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Racing
yeah,
car games.
yeah, that was the edge that we brought to the game, I guess.
Yeah. So when you designed the tracks, was it like a list of sort of corners and hills? You know, how did you store
Yeah,
the
yeah.
tracks in memory?
I'll call it an early markup language. Although, of
Yeah.
course, markup language that would be an alien concept to us. But yes, it's a list, an array, what have you. Um, the you keep a pointer. Remember pointers,
Hmm.
into where you were on that list, and the list would have commands like here there'd be a corner, here there'd be a hill. Please start showing trees on the right hand side for 500 meters at an interval of every 100 meters, what have you. So the game design is very much contained within that map,
Hmm.
um, data markup language. Call it what you will. So really fun coming across these concepts for the first time that any computer scientist would probably learn in the first 2 weeks of university. But we had none of that experience. We're just at high school hacking it away, discovering some of these concepts ourselves.
Hmm. I wonder, can you, sorry to dwell on this. Did you have different types of curves? Was it like, slight curve?
Yeah, so I mean, it's really is geeking out. I remember trying to have an actual radius value, but it was
Right.
just a curvature value of one sort or the other, and you would tweak it and hack it until it felt right. But yes, it's just those that list of commands became more and more powerful and complicated as we went from game to game to game.
Right. How much time did you spend on the car AI? How sophisticated was that? You know, for the other cars.
Um, Not a lot, but again, I mean, if you look at Mario Kart these days, it's essentially the same game idea of just in spades with steroids with eggs on top. But the key concept of the car AI is that they don't get too far ahead of you.
Hmm.
They don't get too far behind you. You're playing with them, you're competing with them. So gameplay is more important than racing, as it were. So they're there just to play with you, just to compete with you, just to give you some fun. Um, and so reality is not important. Gameplay is more important. Creativity is more important. Um, and if I'm allowed to digress, I ended up co-producing TV shows like Vietnam Idol, and
Ah.
I don't want to say that we frigged the vote, but just to say that the drama, the narrative, the creative of the show is
Hmm.
sometimes a little bit more important than the actual voting, in
Yeah.
particular when Daddy's got all his factory workers voting for his pretty little girl that can't sing very well. Let me say more on that one.
Right. Okay. Well, the games got even more sophisticated, didn't they? Because you had things like multi-lane tracks and even tracks that sort of branched off and that
Yeah.
sort of thing. Yeah, that was amazing, wasn't it? So,
I,
um,
I have to say, you really are geeking me out here. Just your mention of those phrases makes me get little light bulbs to exactly some of the challenges that we had, not one road but two roads, what
mm,
have you. And the worst one was from an arcade conversion based on the water. I can't remember the name, but it was 90-degree turns. So
oh
that was
yeah,
that was another particular challenge. Very, very nitty, very, very geeky. But yes, that was very much one of the key challenges in developing the fundamentals for getting these games right.
yeah. Because I mean, nowadays it's a lot. I don't know if it's easier, but you're dealing with a proper 3D track, aren't you? And you just stick a camera on it, whereas you had to
Oh
actually
yeah, 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 yeah.
generate the road yourself.
The CPU and GPUs that the guys have these days is just truly amazing.
Mm.
Um, Again, I'll distract for a minute, but I keep in touch with one of my old lead engineers. He's still out in Los Angeles working on some of the big game projects with Electronic Arts, and a lot of the ideas are still the same. A lot of the production, video game production practices are, still the same. The stuff that we learned back in the day. But the power that the modern devices have is amazing. Lets them away with murder in terms
Mm.
of how inefficient the programming can be. But obviously the rendering capabilities, the lighting models are amazing and beautiful, and they can go as far close to reality as you want, and then bring it back a little bit to make sure that they got the gameplay as well.
Yeah. How did you find, because obviously you're a brilliant programmer, so how did you find transitioning into 16-bit? Was it quite easy for you?
I think if anything, 68,000 was easier than Z80, and once you learn one language, it's
Mm.
quite easy to pick another one. But yeah, I loved 68,000 having the 16-bit registers and the 32-bit double registers, and
Mm.
love the challenges of doing the same game for the Atari ST as
Mm.
well as the Amiga that were both 68,000 based, but had different screen or rendering technologies and stuff like that. So we had to write, we used a lot of macros. So we kind of tried to come up from the assembly language somewhat, and have macros that would do the same thing, but different ways on
Mm.
Atari and Amiga. The Amiga, I believe, was faster. So we got away with, not more resolution, but more trees on the side of the road and that kind of stuff.
Mm.
But I really enjoyed the software development challenges of developing for both those devices. Really loved the flexibility that we had with those machines. We could focus more on production values rather than just getting this damn thing across the line. The challenges with the Z80 machines was really, maximizing what you could get out of that CPU.
Yes.
68 machines allowed for a lot more fun.
Well, you worked on games on the Nintendo 64 as well. I mean, you mentioned Robotron before. So do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Um, that was when I'd moved to California. I had
Mm.
my own video game company with a guy called George Wising was my key American partner. He was a token American, and with a Japanese guy. That would all come out of Sony. So would all, like Sony had assembled these guys, and I think we lasted like 3 or 4 months at Sony before frustration levels got too high. We're never going to finish a game at Sony, or the large Japanese corporations s- um, s- I want to say supplanted or landed in America. We're never going to have the wherewithal to actually finish a game or make a game.
Mm.
So three or four of us got together, left the company, camped up in my apartment in Beverly Hills adjacent in Los Angeles, and just toured our skills around the publishers, and that got us an invite to present or talk to Midway. We did a 3D graphics demo of what Robotron would look like, and they gave us a commission, and we headhunted video game talent from all round. Got my best friend Marcus out of Psygnosis. Little story there was that we flew him over from Liverpool to LA on a Friday.
Hmm.
And by the time he flew back on Sunday night, um, I'd rented him a Mustang. I'd got him a nice hotel in Venice Beach. But by Sunday night, he signed the contract, and a week or two later, he flew over with his wife. So we could have a more um professional approach to game development. I could continue to write the games per se, and Marcus, the chap from Psygnosis, he was responsible for the graphics engine. So again, we had the macros and the other approaches that let me write the common games code on different devices, and different guys doing the graphics engines, taking writing the low level code to
Mm.
make things happen, as it were.
Hmm. You carried on in gaming for a while, didn't you? And then you switched to doing other things. So do you want to talk about that transition?
Um, driven by personal as much as career goals, but um, the way I tell the story, and this is the way I tell the story, what made other people so much money, but weren't making so much money myself. So I thought, how do we do that? And I'd always wanted to do an MBA. So I'd saved up enough money. I sold my company in America, came back to Europe, did my MBA, and that really gave me the confidence to not get out of games per se, but to say there's more important things. So got the one-way ticket to Southeast Asia, Singapore, and had a whole bunch of fun there for the last 20 odd years. Yes, still doing software development. Yes, very much in the entertainment realm. Talked about, I did Asian Idol, Singapore Idol, Vietnam Idol, a lot of the technology behind TV shows like that. Did a lot of digital advertising campaigns. Ended up taking a very large computer into the ESPN offices, plugging it into the broadcast network, pressing one button to start the audio, one button 2 seconds later to start the video, and broadcasting a TV show, a completely computer generated TV show out in the airwaves. So I had lots of fun doing stuff like that. Again, things get serious in the end. And now I've got 25-man software studio in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. We got a call center out in the Philippines and 20 odd doctors in America. And we run a telemedicine company in America using Asian talent, with me based here in Cambridge in the UK and coordinating everything.
Brilliant. Wow.
Having lots of fun. Maybe
I
fun is the constant element. It really is. The constant thread through, anyone's career. If you're not
Mm,
having fun making the games, no one's going to have fun playing the games. And that's a mantra that should stay with us no matter what we're doing.
perfect. Yeah. Well, you certainly left a massive legacy behind with all the games you've made.
You're too
It's been
kind.
well, it's been brilliant talking to you again, and thanks for spending the time talking to us again. Thanks again.
It's been my great pleasure, and let me just say that your questions have made me think and make me remember parts of my career, my life, but in particular the real fun making those games that we had back in the day. So thank you very much for letting me replay, enjoy once again some of the emotions, ideas, and the all the geeky stuff that was fun back in the day.
My pleasure, mate. Well, you take care. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.